The title of our project is GUYUB KAMPUNG, and in order to explain it, it's appropriate to start from the word GUYUB. GUYUB, as we can read from the abstract, is an ancient concept of Javanese philosophy that leads individuals to live in harmony with the people around them. It is difficult to translate this term into a single word, but it can be conceived as the will of an individual to be part of the community. For this reason, the project aims to give life to a new wave of experiencing the traditional kampung. People are therefore led to aggregate not only under the same roof, but also in wide squares, which alternate between private and public spaces. As we can see from the concept, the single modules representing individuals are joined together to create small families. These small families, in a second moment, are added together to generate a bigger community. In the last step of our concept, we can find the ceiling. Project because keeps everything together and create a new sense of aggregation in the traditional kampung. As regards the urban strategies, instead, we decided to start from the pre-existing axes which have been maintained, and then identified the main orthogonal pathways. For the main squares, we have placed that at the intersection of these axes as a proper meeting and articulation point. On the diagonal axis, instead, we have positioned the public secondary squares, which follow the trend of new terracing of the land, and integrate with multiple green areas in this square. The new pattern created in the site as a consequence of the design of empty spaces has therefore guided the design of the solids, especially with the arrangement of public buildings and aggregative groups, under which residential buildings are joined together. On the outer edge of this roof, we decided to maintain a linear front to define a clean perimeter along the margin, while the edges towards the public squares are more jagged and dematerialized, thanks to the presence of openings that almost seem to want to join from one roof to the other. This argument leads therefore to the new kampung, visible in the main axonometric view, and where a huge number of aggregative space make their way between the small private squares and of houses and the large public squares, from which the buildings for the community emerged and became a landmark for the entire site.
So the relationship between private buildings and small squares, public buildings and main squares is clear also in the volumetric plan, where we have deliberately removed the roofs, giving an overview of the intervention in the plot. And on the right side, in the detailed plan, instead, we decided to represent the ground floor and the first floor at the same time. On one hand, to highlight how the different modular types of the residential buildings interact with each other, and on the other one, to bring an example of the entire layout of public buildings. Moreover, it is possible to underline the work carried out on the ground level, For example, the permeable and non-permeable surfaces. And here again, the green also plays a fundamental role in the intention of activating the relationship between human beings and nature, and between human beings themselves. Its presence once again constitutes a space for the community, suitable also for hosting some infrastructure for kids. From the section down below, we can see a dynamic effect made up with buildings of different heights. It has been created with the different elevation of different houses and buildings, and with the level curves deriving from the design of the main axis we have seen before. Another very important point is the envelope of the buildings, and a common element of the whole project is the attention and the relationship with tradition, but without reproposing it blindly. In line with the idea of creating not just a traditional kampung, but specifically a traditional modern one. In fact, we use two different types of pattern for solar shading for the public buildings. Those who have 2 floors have a solar shading with a pattern that abstracts the traditional kavung batik. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. And while those with a single floor have a pattern that reminds us of a parang batik. So in the residential area, instead, we use the terracotta cladding that refers to the massive use of brick in the area. And the importance of the link between tradition and innovation is emphasized also in the materials of the roofs, and where we decided to use bamboo canes integrated into a structural steel system, obviously in a modern way. Going even further into detail, we can see the residential types. In particular, we find 4 modular types that can accommodate a different number of people, going from the smaller one for 1 or 2 people to the bigger one for 4 or 6 people. These accommodations have been designed for a context where the population density is generally very high. However, this does not sacrifice the internal comfort. In fact, even in the design and in the choice of the furniture, we use the elements that could be variously arranged, composed, or configured to leave maximum flexibility in the spatial generation of the interiors. For example, the stairs have been designed both as a piece of furniture, a piece of furniture that is a vertical connecting element, but a wardrobe too. In the section in scale 1 to 100, you can see even better the interaction between the houses and the arrangement of the furniture inside them. And in the views placed in the center of the poster, we wanted to represent the comfort of living in these tiny houses. As regards the structure, we decided to use a wooden platform construction technology with a steel structural system. And the cladding, which you had seen earlier, instead provides a ventilated facade that is the optimal solution for a subtropical hot and sultry climate throughout the year that we have in Indonesia. In fact, through the air gap, the hot air rises upwards and the fresh air continues to move inside the gap, cooling the building and its internal parts. Even the roof is placed higher than the house, leaving a gap to help the ventilation. And furthermore, the houses have been designed to have openings on the opposite sides of the building in order to guarantee a continuous and uninterrupted flow of air. And this is another reason why the furniture has been placed along the walls. On the right side, from the detail in the elevation, it is possible to notice the mild play of lights and shadows that is created by the ventilated facade.
So to conclude our presentation, from the following pics, it is possible to perceive this sense of community, this sense of quiet, also given by the soft color pastel and watercolors that really want to convey this sense of GUYUB. And that's it. Thanks.